and you start to find out and you start to uncover the principles by which New Agers operate, then you realize that there's a difference. And so, as I said, it's a very broad spiritual and social movement. And you have one major proponent of the New Age movement that I would like to just tell you about. And when you hear this, it will be eye-opening. It will be eye-opening. Let me just give you one major proponent of the New Age movement. Her name is Alice Bailey. And she is regarded as New Agers and occultists as one of the prophetesses. So they even use some of our terms of the New Age movement. And she is known as one of the founders of the New Age movement. And she actually founded the Lucy's Trust, which was formerly known as Lucifer Publishing Company in 1922. How many years is that? 1922 to now. 100 years. And some of her major aims or goals was one, and I want you to listen, because we have to be very careful. Things might look like God at face value, but when you get into the meat of the matter, you realize that their aim is to tear down the kingdom of God. Her first aim was to take God and prayer out of the education system. And I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but I just feel to go there. To take God and prayer out of the education system. And that has been achieved largely in part, maybe not in Jamaica, but in other cultures, that has been achieved. And how many years ago we said this was? 100 years ago. Secondly, her second aim was to reduce parental authority over the children. Achieved. You can barely talk to your children nowadays. Thirdly, to destroy, and watch this, the Jew-Christian war. Fourthly, if sex is free, they say, then make abortion legal and make it easy. 100 years ago, you know, achieved. Make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage for life. And if you look, not many people view marriage with any amount of respect nowadays. It's just, you know, another thing that people are doing these days. And sixthly, it said, make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. You can't hardly watch TV or be on the computer or be on your phone or read something without seeing that agenda being pushed. And this is what we must realize as the church. The enemy is not playing games. This was 100 years ago. This lady devised these plans, and she has, or these objectives, and she has by and large achieved many of them today. Let me just complete the list. It says to debase art and make it run mad. Use media to promote and change mindsets. So all of us who scroll on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, you name it, there's a plan behind all of this, and we must realize, yes, these mediums are good because we can use them for the propagation of the gospel, to preach the gospel, to evangelize, but yet still we must be very careful that we do not subscribe to the agenda that is being pushed by and large on these mediums. And that's why it is important for us to temper our intake, and what we are taking in as young people and people of God. And we'll go further into that. Another point, ninth point, to create an interfaith movement. And as I said, many people nowadays, they say there are many ways to God, and that was one of her objectives. And 10thly and finally, get governments to make all these laws legal and get the church to endorse the changes. So in essence, the New Age movement, because they are so broad and they are so non-specific, they have sought to even infiltrate the church so that they can push their agenda and everyone can accept it as normal. And so that's my take. Very long-winded answer, but
I hope you guys are actually listening and paying attention, because there are some nuggets coming out. You know, Brighton said a lot of relevant things, but like, I just want to ask anyone on the panel, like, you know, he said that we are to be mindful of what we subscribe to, because I'm very prevalent on social media. Like, only one that I am not on is TikTok. Yeah, I would have joined TikTok, but I hear that it is addictive, and I don't want to become addicted, so I'm not on TikTok. But like, you know, how do you temper? Because I think that's the word that you use. How do you temper what you consume? How do you temper what you subscribe to? Because like you said, a lot of the time on face value, you know, it doesn't look harmful. It doesn't look like, you know, it is anything that will lead us astray and all of that. But, you know, if we continue doing this over time, I guess then it will take effect and it will seep in. So how do we remedy that per se? Anybody?
All right. So, being a person that, if you know me from back then to now, I was addicted to social media, and I can say it because I have overcome. And how it is that you temper yourself, I was given this analogy that when I came home from school, my normal practice would be probably I take off my clothes, but I sit down somewhere, I have my phone and I scroll. And then by the time it is that I'm scrolling, the time I would come from school would be probably about 3. And by the time I finish scrolling and going through everything and liking and commenting and all of that, night would have come down. So that would have been about 7 o'clock. So that would be like 4 hours. And it was also asked of me how much time I actually spend with God. And the calculation was made, if every day of the week, the 5 days of the week that I went to school, I came home and I spent 4 hours in my phone on social media. That would be 4 times 5, 20 hours, right? And we don't count Saturday, which in between doing the chores from about 8 o'clock to about 3 o'clock, in between all of that, you're still on the phone, distracted, so that probably we can count for the next 4 hours. So that would mean that I would have spent 24 hours, which is 1 day on social media, comparing it to how much time I would have spent with God. It is that as young people that we need to look into our viewership, how long it is that we spend. You know, our phones can actually tell us how long we actually spend on a particular app, and see how it is that it measures up to the time that we spend with God. Also, we need to look at this. The amount of time we invest in a thing is how much it is that it's important to us. And we are all guilty. I will say we because I am guilty as well. If it is that we spend that much time and we will stop everything and we're on these different things or these different sites, what is it we're investing in our spiritual life, and which will actually ensure our final gain or final home, where it is that we'll end up. So these considerations is what helped me to kind of back off Facebook, back off Instagram. I am not really on TikTok. When I first went on it, I found that, yeah, I'm dep on it and I see different things and I can probably post them on my WhatsApp. Godly things are also on these social medias, but in terms of our subscription, what do we look on the most? If it is that you're looking through your social media. And majority of the things is either jokes, videos about, I can say videos about food, movies. The algorithm picks up what it is that you're most interested in and feeds you it. And it's the distraction that keeps you addicted. So it is for us to get away from our phones and the devices. And I have taken my time from getting away from